Irv Mulligan is going into this week of action with an absolute perfect game plan, and Elijah Williams is unstoppable at day one practice. Oh, yeah, he's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. We have a stacked out show that I'm extremely excited and proud to bring to you, all centered around the HBCU Combine and the HBCU Legacy Bowl, with a nice little mixture of both of these events. So we'll wrap up today's episode with a look at a takeaway, the difference in speed between the 2024 HBCU Combine versus the 2025 HBCU Combine. In segment 2, we'll take a look at Elijah Williams, who is absolutely unstoppable, and I don't think that any of us should be surprised by this. But we're going to kick this whole thing off with Irv Mulligan, who has the perfect game plan when it comes to how this week needs to go for the Jackson State running back. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm trying to get a little bit better. I'm trying to get a little bit better with planning out my weeks, knowing exactly how I want the week to transpire. If I ever get stumped, I know that I can go talk to Irv Mulligan, because when you look at what he says, his game plan, his mission statement is for the week of the HBCU Combine and the Legacy Bowl, he has it all the way down to a science, and it's hard to find any flaw in his plan. Steve Wyche, the NFL Network reporter, sat down, or really stood up. It was a stand-up interview. But anyway, Steve Wyche and Irv Mulligan had a conversation, and when you really think about it, Irv Mulligan is not in the position that a lot of these guys are. Irv Mulligan isn't in a position where he's trying to get on radars. You can't really say that. Like, Irv Mulligan is not in that. So with this context, it's important to think about how he's proceeding through the week of action. Because Irv Mulligan's plan from Monday with the HBCU Combine all the way up until, let's say, Friday, let's exclude the game. From Monday to Friday, the work week that he has planned out and what he has his eyes set on is picture perfect. He said at this Combine, it wasn't I want to run fast. It wasn't I want to show my agility, show my explosiveness. I want to show that I can catch the football. Irv Mulligan already has 15 interviews and more lined up. And honestly, after a strong HBCU Combine, it wouldn't surprise me to see him get to 28 plus teams that are going to interview him. Irv Mulligan showed what he is on tape, and people have already noted this. So now he wants to show what's not on tape. And he understands being a part of the passing game was not a big thing for him, but he wants to showcase that he is a receiver. And then after we've left that, because we're beyond Monday now, as we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even Saturday with the game, if you want to include it, his next mission is to show I can block. It's not just about my ability to run. It's not just my ability to catch. It's not just about what I can do with the ball in my hand. I want to show everybody I'm a complete back, and that includes running, catching, and blocking. I'm going to pull up a couple of quotes that he has from the Steve Wyche interview, but it's clear. The mission statement for Jackson State running back Irv Mulligan is showcase that I've already done all this on the field rushing. I can catch the football, mission accomplished, and I can block. That is on the way. I really do love the mentality that he has. When you really look at it, man, I've been a fan of Irv Mulligan, the player, since he stepped foot on Jackson State. But understanding the mindset and understanding how he approaches this, it's made me a much bigger fan, right? Like, we got to get Irv Mulligan on the show, and we will get Irv Mulligan on the show. I expect that I'll be doing a lot more interviews I'm hoping and expecting that I'll do a whole lot more interviews as we lead up into draft season. That's when we should really start peaking up. But I want to bring up some of the quotes that he had. So when he was talking to Steve Wyche, Mulligan said, they didn't see me talking about the teams. They didn't see me get in the passing game a lot during the season, but today I really showcased that because I'll be honest, that was one of the weaknesses on my scouting report. And I appreciated that because people ain't going to sit here and act like we're reading scouting reports, but we are, right? Like if there was a podcast scouting report and they were like, this guy does all of this, man, I read the comments. I'm not about to sit here and act like I'm above it. Sometimes I try not to respond. Sometimes I engage. But the truth of the matter is, I'm going to say like 80 to 87% of us are reading those comments. Famous folks be out here looking up their name on Twitter to see what people are saying. So we are realizing, or excuse me, we are searching, we are looking at our own individual scouting reports. Maybe you're not a football player, so you don't have a scouting report like him, but a lot of us are checking these things out. And when we see a weakness that we don't necessarily think is a weakness, that ego kicks in. That ego kicks in and said, okay, we're going to show them. And I'm not even going to get into that. But the point is, I appreciated that. Hey, y'all think this is a weakness of mine? I'm going to come in and I'm going to show you that it's not. I can do this at a very high level. He even said, look, I could be a slot receiver if you need me to. Let's stick with the running back. But I do love the attitude that he approaches this with, you know? The next quote that I wanted to look at was he showed his ability to catch. And we kind of already preview what the mentality is, but I want to give you the exact words that Irv Mulligan said as far as how I want or how he wants to approach blocking. The main thing for me is showing them I can also protect the quarterback. When the linebacker come and we're doing one-on-one blocking, I want to show them, just like I caught every ball today, I'm going to block every linebacker at practice. I'm focused on blocking from here on out. That was the quote right there. Those last two sentences are really the quote. I want to show them, just like I caught every ball today, I'm going to block every linebacker at practice. I'm focused on blocking from here on out. Irv Mulligan has a clear plan. I'm the SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. I went to Jackson State. There's already eyes on me. People already know who I am. I've shown what I've done on tape. I don't need to come in and be like, yeah, I'm just going to reinforce it. No, I don't need to do that. What I need to do is come in and show things that weren't on tape. Because at the end of the day, drafting is all about traits. Yes, tape comes into play, but they want to see that you have traits that they can build on. And typically those traits are seen through tape, but maybe it wasn't, like in Irv Mulligan's case, the offense didn't need me to catch the football. Let me show you I can catch the football smoothly. I wasn't needed in pass protection as much, maybe. Let me show you in these one-on-one blitz sessions that I can pick up linebackers on a consistent basis. This is the mission statement for Jackson State running back Irv Mulligan. I want to show you this week everything you didn't see during the season is not because I'm incapable. It's because that's just what was required of me. I think that's a beautiful statement. The mission statement of the week for Jackson State running back Irv Mulligan. Everything you saw on tape, or excuse me, the mission statement is the things you didn't see on tape is not because I'm incapable. It's simply because the offense did not require it of me. And everything you've seen on tape, you already know I provide that. This is beautiful. I love this mentality. I love this approach. Irv Mulligan is a guy that I can genuinely support, and I can genuinely look forward to what he's able to do. I hope that he's able to pick up linebackers on a consistent basis because he's a talented running back, and displaying an all-around ability will help him become a preferred free agent, undrafted free agent, or even a late round pick. We'll have to see. Now, as we push forward, Elijah Williams, dude's a beast. We knew that, but we cemented that he's a beast even further in day one of Legacy Bowl practices. Let's talk about that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. This message is brought to you from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with paperwork and piles of it and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now, Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched with your unique tax situation, an expert who's backed in the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real time updates on their progress and you get the most money back guaranteed. All while you get to go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now, this is taxes. Into it. TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On Today. It's the biggest stories all around the world. Also, check out Locked On Saints because they are making a lot of moves. I actually believe Irv Mulligan and Elijah Williams are two players from the HBCU Legacy Bowl who kind of make sense with the Saints. But maybe we'll get into that at another time on another day. But as we stand right here, Elijah Williams could not be handled. Elijah Williams could not be handled in the first day of the Legacy Bowl practices, and no one is surprised. I don't think anybody who knew who Elijah Williams was surprised at the fact that he was an immovable force. I don't think that there was anybody who was surprised that he was winning in pass rush sets. Gerald Huggins comes on the show all the time, and I swear he said this at least twice, maybe three times when talking about Elijah Williams, that people around the MEAC, and I'm not talking about coaches, I'm not talking about fans, I'm talking about former players and current players, have all described him as being the most difficult guy to block. Gerald Huggins just came on and he said, listen, he's gone against a bevy of opponents and he's given all of them the work. So the idea that he would come in and he would work players at an all-star game, that's not a shock. It's one of the reasons that I'm extremely disappointed that Elijah Williams didn't get a Hula Bowl or a Shrine Bowl invitation. I really would have enjoyed to see him out there. I think that he has a great skill set. I think he's extremely versatile. He has good size and he has good movement for his size. It would have been really interesting to watch him out there because Elijah Williams is the exact type of player who makes himself a lot of money in these type of games. Going to the Shrine Bowl and going against guys from Boston College or Maryland or whatever, like that would have done wonders. And it would have sent a message one way or the other. It would have sent a message one way or the other. But anyway, like we expected, he could not be blocked. And I was able to see two of his one-on-one reps. I wasn't able to know who they were against because the numbers were crazy. I hope when the game rolls around, y'all ain't got my boy wearing 66. All right. Elijah Williams in 66 is disgusting. You can't tell me you can't find a zero. Come on, man. Y'all had to be prepared. But even if it wasn't 66, they doing my boy wrong. You could have gave him 90. You could have gave him something. However, the number really is irrelevant. 66, 0, 43, 59. It doesn't matter. Elijah Williams is going to dominate along the defensive line. And he did this in team portion. He did this in one-on-ones. You know, I want to pull up a couple of tweets from some of my guys who were there. You had Gerald Huggins who says Elijah Williams, like expected, cannot be blocked or can't be blocked. Then you had Blue Bloods who came and said Morgan State defensive lineman Elijah Williams was the top performer of day one of the HBCU Legacy Bowl. Williams dominated throughout the day, playing every position along the defensive line. His power was on full display in New Orleans. Then lastly, you get Steve White, who comes out, and the first thing he says is, oh my gosh, with the big like eye emojis, right? Like, then he goes on to say he easily wins this drill, which was attached to a video. He easily wins this drill, but dominated team sessions as well on day one of the prep for the All-State HBCU Legacy Bowl. This is Elijah Williams. This is who he is. This is who he has been since he stepped on the field at Morgan State, a dominant force. I love the fact that he played multiple positions because at 200 and I think came in like 292, something like that, 290. But at that weight, I could see him odd front defensive end. He's played on the edge, so it wouldn't be strange for him to be playing in a 5-tech. I could see him playing as a 3-tech, right? You wouldn't want him as a nose. You wouldn't want him as a 1-tech because he's a little small for that. But as far as being a 5-tech or a defensive end in an odd front system, or being a 3-tech in an even front system, I like those fits for Elijah Williams. He's been very, very versatile as a collegiate defensive lineman. at 290 pounds. It allows him to do that. I don't think I would want him on the edge in a 4-3 frequently, but if it's a 3-4, technically he's a defensive end. He's not on the edge, right? So it's a position that he's familiar with, right? Like he's played on the edge before. He rushed off the edge in both of the snaps that I was able to see of his, but I don't think that's what best suits him in the league. But lining up in that position as a 5 tech in a 3-4, where you're not expected to come off the edge as much, that does work wonders. That is something that I would really look forward to. But yeah, so the fact that he worked multiple places at his size, it showcases the different aspects of his game for different teams. And that's what I think is important. Because as a wide receiver, like I'm a wide receiver. That's my skill set. But as a defensive lineman, if you can line up at a 3 tech, 5 tech, 1 tech, I think he'd still be a small 1 tech, small nose guard. But the point is, if you're showing that you can operate in all of these different alignments, then now you're attractive to more schools. To the more teams. That just makes a lot of sense. And Elijah Williams is doing everything he needs to. I expected him to dominate. I won't come back on here tomorrow and tell you he dominated. I won't come on here Friday and tell you that he dominated. But I do expect the domination to continue. Now, next Monday is free game. If he comes on and wreck shop in the game, I'm going to talk about it. The thing about this is interesting is that, and I don't want to give too much away because I think I may talk about this later. I may talk about this on Friday, to be honest. But defensive line dominates. Defensive line dominates these games. I also think you have some really good running backs. And I think Gerald alluded to this. But if you have really good running backs and defensive line dominates often, those two things don't go together, because as good as these running backs are, it's going to be hard to showcase if you're not getting any blocking. So that's just a difficult one. That's a difficult one. But I look at Elijah Williams as a dominant force who's showcasing exactly who he's always been, and in front of all of the scouts, because I think all 32 were represented today, if I'm not mistaken. So great performance, as we expected. But I want to get into some more HBCU Combine takeaways, because there's a little bit more here. And I noticed a trend. I want to highlight some of the best performers and then get into that trend I noticed as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. I want to talk about some HBCU Combine, one specific takeaway, but also some of the more impressive performers. Yesterday, we highlighted Joaquin Davis out of North Carolina Central and Robert McDaniel out of Jackson State. Those names will come back up a couple of times, actually. But today, I wanted to identify 4 players, 5 really, because we're going to give an additional like honorable mention of sorts. But I wanted to highlight 5 players who excelled in the big events, because the shuttle, the 3-cone, they're important. They tell a really big story, to be honest. I don't want to downgrade the importance of these drills, but it's not the ones that people are looking like, oh, I can't wait to see what this person's 3-cone is. Said no one ever. But, we're looking for the vert. I think we're looking for the 40. I think we're looking for the bench press, probably more dependent on what the position is. And maybe we're kind of looking for the broad. I don't know if I want to include the broad and make it a big 4, but it's the big 3 plus 1. And that 1 is right there. So I want to look at who had the best performances in these 4 events. Joaquin Davis led the way with a 4.44 40-yard dash. Then you're looking at Xavier Robiou, where, oh my God, 43-inch vertical. I don't know how Xavier Robiou jumped 43 inches at the HBCU Combine and no one talked about it. I'm going through the measurements, or excuse me, the drills and the testing, and I'm going through the long spreadsheet that my guy Gerald did. I'm gonna go ahead and post that in the comments, or not in the comments, but yeah, I'll post it in the comments. I'll do it. No, because I know I'm gonna forget. I'm gonna post it in the description. So if you want to go see everybody's testing and what they did, I'm gonna post that article, and Gerald does a really great job of summarizing who the best was. So if you just want to scroll down and see, oh, Jaden Ivey was the best performing offensive lineman. Why? Because of these short reasons. It's just one sentence. So yeah, I thought it was really good. So I'll put that in my description, actually. Anyway, when you're looking at yeah, I don't know how Xavier Robiou jumped 43 inches and not a soul talked about it. I was going through the article that I was just mentioning. I was going through that and I read it. It said 43. I text Jared like, you sure you know what, dyslexia? Like, you meant to type 34? I go to Twitter. No one's talking about the fact this man jumped 43 inches. He actually jumped 42. They maxed it out at 42. They had to move it up because he had another inch to go. This is incredible. Of everything that was done here, this was probably the most impressive because we're approaching top 10 range. Like, I want to be very clear. The reason I'm shocked no one's talking about it is not only because 43 inches is incredible, but 44 inches is right along that. Is that top 10? If he would have jumped 1 inch higher, he would have been top 10 in NFL scouting combine history. So to be that close to some of the best jumps ever at a combine, this deserved a little bit more recognition. Xavier Robiou, the safety out of Howard, jumped 43 inches. And if nobody else is going to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. He also had a 10.5 in the broad jump. So he didn't do any speed, but he did do agility and he did do explosiveness. Focusing on his explosiveness, he passed that test with flying colors. Flying colors. But anyway, then you go into the broad jump, which is Robert McDaniel out of Jackson State, another safety. He jumped a 10.8. And I want to give some love to Jeremiah Pruitt. I want to give a quick little shout out to Jeremiah Pruitt, who was a bigger guy and jumped 10.5. That was good for second. Second best of the entire event came from a tight end, and it was tied with a couple of other guys. But for your tight end to jump 10.5, that's a really nice level of explosiveness that should be highlighted, should be put on the forefront. And then lastly, you got the bench press, and that's Elijah Williams. Got Elijah Williams, man. 30. He put up 30. No one else put up more than 25. So he definitely dominated that event. And as far as Joaquin Davis, he kind of has a similar margin of victory if you're going to consider this a competition, which I do. He has a similar margin of victory where nobody was close to him. I think the next closest runner was a 4.53. And that's the trend I noticed. I'm not going to call this a slow combine because I don't want to go into the offensive linemen, how they ran, the offensive tackles and defensive tackles. I don't want to get into it. But if we're focusing on the speedsters, if we're focused on the guys who you're looking at the watch to say 4.3 something, we didn't have any 4.3s, which, okay, cool. But we only had 1.44. That shocked me. Only one runner at the HBCU Combine ran sub 4.5, and that was Joaquin Davis. That was Joaquin Davis who came in and ran a 4.44, the North Carolina Central wide receiver, and there was nobody else who ran better than a 4.5. I think nobody who ran better than a 4.53, and I think that was Kendall Bowler. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that, but nobody ran in the 4.4s but Davis. And I had to look like, yo, this couldn't have been what was the case last year. I had to look. Because I remember better speed. And it was funny because I'm looking like, okay, he ran a 4.44. Eric Smith last year was in the 4.3s. He might not get another 4.3, but I'm sure he has another compadre in the 4.4s right now. Nothing. Anyway, this goes the top runner at all of the speed positions: running back, wide receiver, cornerback, safety. And I know safety really isn't a speed position, but you could have a burner at safety. You ain't going to have no burner at offensive lineman. The burner becomes a different metric when you talk about offensive line, defensive line. Even a really good pass rusher, maybe you might be able to get in the low 4.5s, maybe the high 4.4s. I would have to look. Like a guy like Abdul Carter, he might run 4.4, high 4.4. But anyway, the point is, fastest running back, Irv Mulligan, 4.58. Fastest wide receiver was Joaquin Davis with the 4.44. Kendall Bowler was the fastest cornerback and the fastest defensive back, but the fastest cornerback at 4.53, and Robert McDaniel was the fastest safety at 4.55. When I'm looking at all of this, I'm saying to myself, like, 4.53? The second fastest time? Let me read to you the amount of people last year who ran better than a 4.5. First off, you had Jarvion Howard, who did not, but he ran a 4.52, and he was the leading running back. So just to keep the theme of who led. But now everybody else that I'm about to name at wide receiver, cornerback, and safety all ran sub 4.5. None of them outside of Eric Smith was better than Joaquin Davis. So if we're talking about top end, yes, the number one guy, he's high. He's high. I mean, he's still not as high as Eric Smith, but this is a good time. I think that 4.44 is a good time for him. Anyway, Tamon Cook, the wide receiver out of North Carolina A&T, ran a 4.48. Eric Smith ran a 4.34. Jaheim Hazel ran a 4.47. So those are two cornerbacks, 4.3, 4.47. And then a safety in John Huggins out of Jackson State, he ran a 4.45. You have 4 guys who ran sub 4.5 in last year's combine compared to only one this year. And I didn't even get into the list of how many people ran better than a 4.53. And I think that would have expanded a little bit because somebody ran a 4.5. There was a 4.51. And when I was looking, I saw these numbers. I could get to two hands on the amount of players who were faster than the second guy this year. That was kind of surprising to me. I don't think that it's an overly large insult or anything, but it is something that I did notice. It was something I noticed. The fact that Kendall Bowler, I thought he might have jumped into the 4.4s. I don't know if there was too many other people I was looking for. I thought Gassett would run better. I did think Gassett would run better. And I think Gassett ended up running a 4.55. Let me see. I got to make sure I get that before we get out of here. But okay, there we go. Now let's find Gassett because Gassett actually really surprised me with something. Yeah, he ran a 4.55. I was kind of surprised by Gassett's number, to be honest. He ran a 4.55. He jumped to 29.5. That one really shocked me. I thought he was going to have a just better explosiveness, better speed. But anyway, the point is, wasn't the fastest from the skill position. We didn't have too many blazers. Shout out Joaquin Davis, 6'4", 4.44, 40 and a half. Speed, physicality, or speed, strength. And then what was it? Oh, speed. Well, I want to say speed and power so bad. 6'4". Oh, size. There we go. Size. That's how I keep wanting to say physicality, keep wanting to say strength, but it's just about the size of the player. He's tall, he's fast, he's explosive. Like, I'm just surprised. I didn't even put 2 and 3 together, but I did eventually. So let me know if y'all thought that trend was interesting. Hopefully, it don't sound like I'm poo-pooing on folks because I'm really not. It's just something I noticed. And the times are the times. And I don't even think that 4.53 is bad. I don't think 4.55 is bad. I don't think 4.58 is bad. Like, I don't think any of the times I listed for the people are bad times for them. It just shocked me that we wouldn't have a person who just skyrocketed. But anyway, like Irv Mulligan, 4.58. That's good. I like that. Robert McDaniel, 4.55. I like that. I know I thought Bowler would probably get closer to the 4.4s, but it is what it is at that point. Anyway, tomorrow's episode, I do think we will get to Carson Vincent. But I'm going to stop promising that because it moves. It moves, man. We probably won't do a Legacy Bowl preview tomorrow. We probably won't do that or recap tomorrow, but we do have some things to get to. We will talk about Patrick Crary before the end of this week. I'll say that. We will get into Patrick Crary and how he's already kind of he's taken that coach of the year. We'll get into that. Anyway, in the meantime, in between time, just some things to look forward to. Don't know exactly when they'll happen, though. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.